Hope you have found this video useful. The best way to support the channel and ensure you don't miss our next upload is to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Part 37.31 Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, the fabrication of lineage, and the call to reflection. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. We are navigating the final movements of Surah As-Saffat, a chapter that began with the majesty of the ranks of angels and is now systematically dismantling the human fabrications that attempt to distort the nature of the divine. In our previous session, we saw the Quran challenge the Makkans on their baseless claims regarding the gender of the angels and their illogical double standards regarding daughters and sons. Today, in part 37.31, we delve into the anatomy of a lie, in verses 151 through 155. We witness the Quran's surgical exposure of the Great Invention, the claim that Allah has taken a son or offspring. We will explore the linguistic weight of fabrication, the theological impossibility of divine lineage, and the recurring Quranic challenge to our capacity for reflection. This session is an invitation to move beyond traditional hearsay and enter the clarity of pure reason. We are looking at how the ego invents stories to make the infinite seem familiar, and how the truth shatters those stories to restore the infinite to its proper majesty. Verse 151. The anatomy of the lie. Kanzel Iman Quran. Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Chapter 37n, verse 151. Pay heed. It is surely of their own fabrications that they say. Linguistic analysis. The verse opens with the attention-grabbing particle L. Pay heed, behold. This is a divine alarm, signaling that what follows is of the utmost importance to the integrity of belief. The word of qiyam, their fabrications, falsehoods, comes from the root afk, which refers to a lie that turns things upside down. Unlike a regular lie, kodavib, an ifk is a lie that distorts the very foundation of reality. It is a subversion. By adding the emphatic inahum, surely they, Allah, isolates the source of the error. It is an internal invention, not a revealed truth. Exegetical depth. This verse serves as the opening statement for the prosecution in the divine court. Exegetically, it identifies the root cause of polytheism, the human manufacture of truth. The Makkans and others throughout history did not receive this information from a prophet or a book. They manufactured it within their own cultural imaginations. The use of pay heed indicates that the listener must wake up from the trance of tradition. When everyone says something is true, it becomes difficult to see it as a lie. Allah breaks that spell by labeling it as a fabrication. Sufi spiritual interpretation? In the Sufi path, IFK represents the projection of the ego nafs. The ego is a factory of lies. It creates stories about Allah, about the self, and about the world to make itself feel secure. To pay heed is the first step of Yaka awakening. The seeker must ask, is my understanding of the divine based on what Allah says about himself, or is it based on the fabrications of my own culture and desires? To identify the IFK is to begin the process of tajard, stripping away, removing the layers of false belief until only the pure essence remains. The fabrication is the veil. The paying heed is the lifting of that veil. Historical, ethical insight. Ethically. This verse warns against intellectual dishonesty. It is a sin to speak about the Creator without knowledge. Historically, it addresses the specific claims of groups like the Banu Salama, who claimed a blood relationship between Allah and the jinn. The ethical lesson is that length of tradition does not equal truth. Just because a lie is old and widely believed does not make it any less of a fabrication. It teaches us the ethics of checking the source. Legal jurisprudential insight. Jurisprudentially, this verse establishes the invalidity of conjecture in matters of creed aqidah. In divine law, a statement about the nature of Allah cannot be legally accepted unless it is based on caught definitive evidence from revelation. This verse provides the legal grounds for declaring certain beliefs as if terb fabrication, which carries severe spiritual and legal consequences. It protects the public record of truth from being polluted by human inventions. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. The oldest lie is still a lie. Do not let the crowd determine the nature of the king. Pay heed to the heart that seeks the truth, and ignore the tongue that merely repeats the inventions of the past. To know the Creator, you must stop listening to the creature. Verse 152. The ultimate denial cancel, Iman. Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, chapter 37. 152. Allah has taken a son. And indeed, they are surely liars. Linguistic analysis. The verse quotes the fabrication. Walada, all Allah has begotten, taken a son. The verb walada refers to biological birth and generation. The second half, wenaham la kodibin, and indeed they are surely liars, uses the double emphasis of yina and the lm of certainty. La. Linguistically, Allah does not just call the statement a lie. He labels the people as habitual liars in this specific context. Exegetical depth. This verse strikes at the heart of the most common theological error in human history. The biological limitation of God. Whether it was the pagan Arabs or other civilizations attributing offspring to the divine, the error is the same, exegetically. It emphasizes that Allah is a Hammad, the independent besought of all. To beget implies a need for continuity, a physical process, and a likeness. Allah denies this, absolutely. By calling them liars, Allah is stating that there is no possibility of error or misunderstanding. This is a deliberate defiance of the truth of oneness Tadi. Sufi spiritual interpretation. The claim that Allah has taken a son is the ultimate anthropomorphic trap. It is the attempt to make Allah like us, someone with a family, a lineage, and a biological legacy. The Sufi understands that Allah is the one who does not beget, nor is he begotten, lam yaledwa, lam yalad. To have a son implies a before and an after, but Allah is the eternal Allah and the last Al-Kir. The liar in this context is the ego that wants a God it can relate to on a human level, rather than a Lord it must submit to on a divine level. To deny the Son is to affirm the magnificence of the One. Historical ethical insight. Historically, this verse was a direct challenge to the various incarnation and offspring myths prevalent in the 7th century world. Ethically, it teaches the respect for the divine transcendence. It is a moral failure to degrade the Creator by reducing Him to human biological functions. It teaches us the ethics of sacred distance, recognizing that the Creator is utterly distinct from the creation albion. Legal, jurisprudential insight. Legally, this verse defines the crime of shirk association. To attribute a son to Allah is the highest form of legal and spiritual rebellion in Islam. This verse serves as the statutory definition of a liar in the eyes of the divine court. It provides the legal basis for the purity of the kalima, affirming that there is no God but Allah. Any legal contract or includes the concept of divine offspring is null and void in the jurisprudence of truth. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. The one who created sonship cannot be a father. He is the source of all, but the likeness of none. A son is a shadow, but Allah has no shadow. When they say He has a son, they are lying about the very nature of existence. To find Him, you must look beyond the family tree of the mind. Verse 153. The Illogic of Selection, Kanzel Iman Quran. Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, chapter 37, verse 153. Has He chosen daughters in preference to sons? Linguistic analysis. The verse uses the interrogative a, af has He chosen preferred. The root GFW refers to choosing the purest part of something. The question is a logical trap. It highlights the internal contradiction of the Makkans. They devalued daughters in their own lives, yet they assigned them to Allah. Linguistically, it is a rhetorical mockery of their biased reasoning. Exegetical depth. This verse uses reductio, ad absurdum reduction to absurdity. Allah is speaking to the Makkans within the framework of their own prejudices. Ecstatically, He is saying, even if you were to believe in divine offspring, which is a lie, why would you choose for Allah the very category you consider inferior for yourselves? This exposes the total lack of intellectual coherence in their paganism. It reveals that their religion was not based on reverence, but on a sloppy, unthinking tradition. Sufi spiritual interpretation. On a spiritual level, this verse addresses the selective perception of the seeker. We often choose favored spiritual states and reject difficult ones, ascribing the lower states to Allah's displeasure and the higher ones to our own merit. The question, has He chosen, mocks the human tendency to assume we know the preferences of the divine. The Sufi understands that Allah is beyond preference in the human sense. His will is absolute, and his wisdom is total. To assume he is chosen based on our social hierarchies is the height of spiritual ignorance. Historical ethical insight. Ethically. This verse is a critique of hypocrisy. It shames those who hold others, even Allah, to standards they themselves do not value. Historically, it was a social critique of the Arabian gender bias. It teaches us the ethics of consistent value. If you devalue a daughter, your theology is as broken as your social structure. It reminds us that our God concept is always a reflection of our own heart state. Legal jurisprudential insight. Jurisprudentially, this verse highlights the failure of legal logic in polytheism. A legal claim must be consistent. The Makkans' claim failed the test of consistency. Their theology contradicted their social practice. This verse provides the legal framework for the doctrine of inconsistency, proving that a system that contradicts its own foundational values cannot be of divine origin. Hikam. Aphoristic interpretation. You cannot give to Allah what you yourself despise. Your theology is as small as your heart. He has no need for choice among genders, for he is the creator of all. If you want to know his choice, look at who he chose to be his messengers, the sincere, not the preferred of your culture. Verse 154. The demand for reason can Zelaman Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, chapter 37, verse 154. What is the matter with you? What a foul judgment you reach. Linguistic analysis. The question, Malakam, what is the matter with you, is a call to consciousness. It is followed by the exclamation Kaifa takumin. How badly do you judge decide? The verb gkm refers to the faculty of judgment and the passing of a verdict. Linguistically, Allah is not just disagreeing with them. He's questioning their sanity and their rationality. Exegetical depth. This verse is a direct confrontation of the intellect. Allah is asking, what has happened to your brains? Exegetically, it emphasizes that the human intellect, if used correctly, should naturally reject the idea of divine offspring and gendered polytheism. The foul judgment is the conclusion they reached by following their desires and their forefathers blindly. It shows that the Quran does not just demand faith, it demands a healthy logic. Sufi, spiritual interpretation, in the Sufi path, how you judge, refers to your internal criterion mizan. Most people judge reality through the lens of their ego, their culture, and their fears. This is a foul judgment. Allah is calling the seeker to check the scale. What is the matter with the heart that it cannot see the oneness of the Master? The foul judgment is the state of hijab veiling, where the mind is so cluttered with fabrications that it can no longer see the obvious truth. This verse is a wake-up call to return to the original fitra, primordial nature. Historical, ethical insight, ethically. This verse teaches intellectual responsibility. We are accountable for the conclusions we reach. I was just following everyone else is not a valid legal or ethical defense. Historically, it challenges the crowd mentality of Makkah. It teaches us the ethics of independent reflection, the courage to judge for yourself based on truth rather than social pressure. Legal, jurisprudential insight. Jurisprudentially. This verse establishes the standard of sound judgment in divine law. A waqmi judgment is only valid if it is based on sound premises. This verse is illegal. Reversal of verdict. Allah is overturning the pagan social and religious laws as being irrational and legally baseless. It establishes that a foul judgment has no legal standing in the eyes of Allah. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. The brain is a gift. Do not let the crowd use it for you. Foul judgment is one that makes the creator a creature and the creature a creator. If your logic doesn't lead you to the one, your logic is broken. Wake up before the day when all judgments are finalized. Verse 155, the invitation to reflection. Kanzel Iman, Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Chapter 37, verse 155. So do you not reflect? Linguistic analysis. The verse consists of the question of Falb, Tadhakkur. Will you then not take heed, reflect, remember? The root dhkr means to remember something that was already known. Linguistically, Allah is not asking them to learn something new, but to recall the truth that is already written in their own soul's fitra. It is an invitation to recollection. Exegetical depth. This is one of the most recurring and powerful questions in the Quran. Exegetically signifies that truth is a memory. We were all present at the day of a last, the primordial covenant where we testified to Allah's oneness. When we believe in fabrications, we are forgetting our true nature. Allah is asking, does this fabrication not trigger your memory of the truth? Does it not feel wrong to your soul? This verse moves the argument from logic to deep intuition. Sufi's spiritual interpretation, Tadhakkur, reflection, remembrance, is the core of the Sufi path. All spiritual progress is a remembering of Allah. We don't discover Allah. We'll uncover Him by removing the forgetfulness ghafla of our hearts. The question, do you not reflect, is a call to muraqabah, watchfulness. Look at the sky. Look at your own breath. Look at the ranks of the angels. Do they not remind you of the One? To reflect is to turn the eye of the heart inward. If you reflect for even a moment, the fabrications of the world will dissolve like salt in water. Historical, ethical insight. Ethically, this verse promotes the ethics of mindfulness. A mindless life is a life of fabrication. Historically, it was a call to the Makkans to step away from the noise of the marketplace and the idols and just think. It teaches us that reflection is a moral duty. To live without thinking is to invite the foul judgments of the world into your heart. Legal, jurisprudential insight. Jurisprudentially, this verse establishes the duty of reflection. In some schools of thought, thinking about the Creator is the first legal obligation of a mature person. Blue. This verse provides the legal basis for the concept of I-cheat independent reasoning in its broadest sense, the duty to use one's mind to confirm the truth of revelation, shows that blind following tackled in the foundations of creed is legally discouraged by Allah. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. Reflection is the mirror of the soul. If you don't look in the mirror, you'll never see the dirt on your face. You don't need a new book, you need an old memory. Stop running and start reflecting. The one you are looking for is the one you have forgotten. Hadith, the purity of oneness. To conclude our session on the fabrication of divine offspring, verse 152, we look at the prophetic confirmation of Allah's absolute independence. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, Allah the Almighty says, the son of Adam has lied against me, and he had no right to do so. As for his lying against me, it is his saying, he has taken a son, while I am the one, self-sufficient, who begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto me. Related in Sahih Bukhari. Hadith, contextualization, and analysis. The divine grievance. This hadith mirrors the language of verse 151. Allah himself calls it alai khatib. It shows that attributing a son to Allah is a personal offense to the majesty of the Creator. The cure for fabrication. The hadith points us back to the reality of hikama, the self-sufficient. This is the theological antidote to the foul judgment mentioned in verse 154. To know Allah as self-sufficient is to realize that He can never have a son. We have witnessed the exposure of the great fabrication and the call to return to sound judgment. We have learned that divine sonship is an invention of the ego, and that reflection is the only cure for the lies of the world. May Allah protect our hearts from fabrications, grant us the clarity of sound judgment, and make us among those who constantly remember and reflect. O Allah, the One, the Only, the Eternal, we seek refuge in You from the fabrications of our own minds and the illusions of our culture. O Allah, purify our hearts from the foul judgments that limit Your majesty. Do not let us be among the liars who ascribe to You that which does not befit Your absolute oneness. Grant us the light of reflection, so that we may remember the covenant we made with You before time began. Let our intellects be a servant to Your revelation, and let our hearts be a vessel for Your truth. Save us from the three darknesses of ignorance, conjecture, and blind following. Ameen.